Good day, everyone. Welcome back to Statehood Speaks, the DC Democratic Party's podcast, where we talk to local and national Democrats about why they are Democrats and what issues are important to them. So we're super excited that today's guest is none other than the Councilmember from the Great Ward 6, Charles Allen. Councilmember, welcome.
Thank you so much, Charles. Good to see you.
Yeah, looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely.
So we start the podcast off asking our guests the same question. Why are you a Democrat?
Woo. I actually grew up in a kind of more conservative space. I went to a college that was fairly conservative, actually. And if you talked to me probably when I was in high school, my father's a Republican, and I kind of would probably identify that way in high school, just kind of following what my dad did. It really was when I went into more conservative spaces, it actually helped challenge a lot of the ways that I thought, the way that I lived, the way that I kind of experienced life and thought about the future. So in a sense, it actually, I felt very much not connected to these kind of conservative spaces. And as I went through my own growth and tried to think through, what do I value? What's important to me? I really realized I identified as a Democrat. And that's kind of, I found a space that I felt like represented the country I want to be, the type of leaders that I was inspired by, the type of causes we chose to fight for, the vision we thought the future should hold. And that to me lined up with the Democratic Party. And I said, that's a pretty easy call for me. So became a Democrat and very proud.
That's an interesting journey.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what gets you up every morning excited to come down to the Wilson building and do the people's work and pick up those phone calls from the constituents every day?
When I first ran, I definitely was motivated by seeing that our city has challenges, and I was also a young father. My daughter was a year and a half old at the time, and probably like a lot of folks, you're trying to think about, all right, how do I work to set up my kid to be, have a future that I want them to have. And as I kind of experienced a lot of families in Ward 6, a lot of challenges in Ward 6, I really was inspired by feeling like I had something to offer and really wanted to lay out a vision of where I think our city should go and how to get there. What I find though every day, like to your question, what gets me up every day is different. Every single day, I've got a new problem thrown at me that needs a solution or needs to be fought. This week has been a challenging one, and I'm not sure quite when this will air, but obviously right now DC is in the midst of fighting for our budget and a lot of congressional interference. And I spent yesterday walking the halls of Congress, trying to talk to members of Congress to fight for DC. When I woke up in the morning, I didn't think that's what I was doing that day. Every day is different. Every day is a challenge, and I really love constantly being challenged, but I also love the fulfillment when my staff and I can solve a problem for somebody. When I have somebody who's facing, they're about to lose housing, their kids is struggling in school, a small business that just can't seem to figure out how to get a permit so they can open their doors. Being able to solve each of those problems, that keeps you getting up the next day. It's something that's very fulfilling and something we're very proud of, and something that I am grateful for having a great team and staff around me. But we prioritize solving problems, and I think that's part of what gets us up every day.
Great. So you talked a little bit about the trip yesterday down to the Hill. For our listeners who are just tuning in and trying to be informed, describe that experience. What was it like? What did you learn, and what did you guys walk away with?
Well, and just to recap for folks, right now, at least as we're talking today, DC is facing about $1 billion cut from Congress that came out of the blue. It's a cut of our local funds, not even federal dollars, our local funds, and it would have devastating impacts across all of government. It would force us to fire police, teachers, firefighters, sanitation workers, you name it. City services will go down dramatically. So right now it's the House of Representatives are casting a vote, and obviously Congresswoman Norton is doing everything she can, but she doesn't have a full vote. So as we walk the halls, certainly talked to a couple of 22-year-old interns who were just being very polite at the front door. But I got, for example, I was able to talk to Congressman Dan Bacon, who's from Nebraska. And when I said to him, like, these are local tax dollars, not federal, he's like, oh, that's right. You guys set your own tax rates, right? We function like a city and a state. So yes, those are our tax dollars. Even if you're doing this in the name of what you think are federal savings, you don't realize any of it. what I found is that he hadn't really paid much attention to DC. He wasn't really even sure that we taxed, like we even had our own system. So I think what we found is at the member level, a lot of members they just don't know DC. They don't understand it. They don't really know what it is. And they kind of get caught up in some national narrative and framing around DC's just this federal town in a swamp and all that type of stuff that they talk about. At a staff level, we found actually people that really wanted to engage with us because most of those staff members, they called us home. Their kids are in our schools, they live in the neighborhoods, they have a vested interest. And so we've actually found a lot of sympathy and a lot of connection with the staff members, both Republican and Democrat, who call this place home. And that was encouraging because obviously I would like to believe those staff members have the ability to get messaging up to their members.
Right.
Now, politics being politics, we shall see. But it was good to see that we could actually grab a couple of members themselves. We could talk to high-level staff. And we also ran into, as we walked around, I ran into a lot of DC residents who were walking the halls too, who really appreciated that several of us were down there making the effort, that we were fighting the fight. And it was good to run into DC neighbors that were out there alongside us. But I think it mattered to them too, to see their elected officials pounding the pavement, working hard on behalf of DC.
That was great. I wasn't there, but I saw the pictures, and I was really proud to see you guys out there fighting.
Thank you.
I guess we're talking about home rule and DC statehood. Let's talk about home rule first. What do you think are some of the things that the council can do, the administration could do, or just the general public can do to make sure we protect home rule for the District of Columbia?
I think one thing is obviously kind of keep doing what we have been doing, right, is to handle our own business. I mean, DC's passed, for over 20 years, we pass balanced budgets on time. We are good stewards of our finances. We have, we're the envy, frankly, of most cities in America when it comes to having fully funded pensions, the business of running a government, being a strong executive and legislative branch. Of course, different branches have have disagreements about policy issues, but you simply can't argue that DC is not a well-run place. We are, despite whatever differences you might have about policy decisions, we're a very well-run place. And I think to some degree, we got to just keep doing what we're doing, which is taking care of our own business. I think we've got to be able to fight, though. And I think that we just celebrated the 50th anniversary of Home Rule. We absolutely are not going to let it disappear on our watch. I think that to some degree, members of Congress like to use the threat of Home Rule as just a bludgeon because we make an easy mark. We don't have 2 senators. We don't have a full member of Congress. They do because they can. They can just kind of be a big bully and talk about taking over DC. Now, do they really want to be in charge of picking up the trash? Do they really want to be in charge of making sure that our teachers and cops and firefighters have a pension? Do they really want to be in charge of fixing sidewalks and that loose brick that's driving you crazy at the end of the block? I really doubt it. So that's what we do, and that's what I'm handling our business. I think that we will constantly make an easy mark. If they think that DC is as bad as they say it is, which it's not, if they are now in charge of it, they also own every one of the things they just complained about, and they don't want that. So I think that we have to fight for it. I think we're going to have to be prepared to mobilize for it. I think it's encouraging seeing how many people are fired up by what they saw taking place with the budget and understand what's at risk. And people are going to have to maintain that level of vigilance and being willing to fight for it. We can't just roll over.
Oh, appreciate that. Now let's, move the conversation to statehood for the District of Columbia. How do you see the conversation evolving as we move forward?
Listen, we're all realistic enough to know I'm not going to get statehood this year or next year. We have an incredibly hostile administration to us. Even when the stars aligned and we had Democrats in charge of the White House and the House and the Senate, we didn't get statehood then either. And so I think as good Democrats, we need to be able to speak truth to some of our own leaders in our own party and political affiliations. When the stars realign, and they will at some point, we need them to recognize why this is so important and why they can't just sit around their hands. They've got to be able to make it happen. And so I think that we've got to be ready to take advantage of that opportunity. Make sure we are preparing the things we've got to do, which I think we have largely been doing. But I think that evolution is going to happen, and we're going to have to be prepared to remind our friends who we agree with on so many different policy issues that when the time comes next time around, they can't take a pass or sit back It's got to happen.
Appreciate that. Let's kind of switch. Well, we're not switching the conversation. It's going to be a little different question, but let's talk about murals in DC. So, what is your reaction to the request to remove certain murals from DC?
I believe that it's not about a mural. It's about power. And so I really don't believe that the district should be paving over our own murals. I don't think it's the right decision for the district to pave over Black Lives Matter, for example. I think that it is actually a much more powerful symbol of what those words were supposed to mean. If the federal government, if they're going to pave it over, make them do it. Don't be complicit and do it ourselves. Make them do it. I think that actually sends a much stronger message about who and what they value if they're the ones doing it. When the Secretary of Transportation sent a letter about crosswalks, we all know what that was about. There's a pride crosswalk that they want to go after. They're afraid of the colors of the rainbow. And so they want to try to force the district to change a crosswalk when we're about to host World Pride.
Yeah.
It's not about the crosswalk. It's about the power of who gets to say what is there. And so I think we should see through it. I think we should call it out. It does not, because it's certainly not about like traffic safety, because traffic safety clearly shows when you actually do murals in crosswalks at your intersections, you make safer intersections. So the data doesn't support what it's about, but let's all just acknowledge that's not what it's about. This is about power, who wields it, what they want to say, and what they think they can make us do. And we shouldn't be complicit in tearing apart what we value.
Okay. Definitely a good thought on that one. So let's get talk more locally or more local issues. Is there anything exciting that you're working on right now?
Always, man, always. I chair the council's committee on transportation and the environment. So there's some of the work I do focused on my committee work, and there's some of the work I do focused outside of that with my colleagues in other committees. One of the things we've been really working hard on that I'm excited about is how we're implementing better traffic safety. We have watched, unfortunately, fatalities and injuries continue to go up ever since more than a decade ago. DC said we were going to achieve Vision Zero, which means zero fatalities and injuries on our roadways. Instead, we've gone the opposite direction. And part of what, since I took over the chair of the committee 2 years ago, we've worked on is not just making sure that we're investing in building safer intersections and safer roadways, but also focused on the individuals that are actually creating the danger and the damage on our streets, then we have stronger tools for accountability. So we're going to continue to work on that so that we have all these things work together, right? People talk about it as the 3 E's. You need engineering, enforcement, and education. And so, yes, let's engineer safer and better intersections and roadways, but you got to have enforcement that goes with it. People have to know that there will be enforcement. Why is it that we have some people driving around with $80,000 worth of speeding tickets? Because they don't believe that there's any enforcement there. That's got to change. I wrote and passed the STEER Act, which is a law that actually gives the Attorney General more tools and powers to go after dangerous drivers. And I think that's going to make an impact. But we're going to keep working on that in the committee. Obviously, that's the transportation. We also have the environment. We're working on a lot of things around our climate action. So while we see the federal government retreating from a lot of the actions that we need to take to combat climate change and the impacts that has on our city, on our economics, on our health, on our well-being, we still have an opportunity to lead. And so we're going to keep working on that. Everything from, helping that senior on a fixed income be able to modernize their home and lower their utility bills by electrifying, or making sure that you've got clean water to drink and get the lead pipes out of our city. We're going to keep working on those issues. And then the third piece in the committee I'll focus on is on Metro. So I spent a lot of time working on our transit system and working to make sure that we're supporting the investments necessary to have a safe, reliable transit system, but also to grow it. If you're not growing, you're dying. So we've got to keep growing our transit system so that we're moving people around the region well. And then a couple of spaces where I spend a lot of my time outside of my committee. I focus a lot on education and schools. Certainly with 2 kids in schools myself, I've got a middle schooler and an elementary schooler. So making sure that I kind of see as a parent and a council member, what am I seeing in our schools? How do we help continue to move and advance them? And then our small businesses are a space where I spend a lot of time. Right now I'm working on ways to change the way that they frankly have these big national banks that like to reach in their pockets and take money out of them with every purchase that's made. I'm trying to find ways to be innovative about supporting your local businesses having them be able to reinvest that back into our workers, back into their business, back into their community. So a lot that we can be doing there. So those are just a handful of things that get me excited on all those things we're working on, despite all the challenges we might feel on the national side.
Awesome. Hey, what are some of the misconceptions about your work, and how do you address those?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of the nature of just politics at this moment is that, I'll kind of broaden this out a little bit. I think that one of the things that we suffer from in politics is just this constant fight to try to just demean and villainize different elected officials.
Especially on Twitter or X?
I mean, Twitter's not real life, so don't worry about that. But I think that the bigger part I do think that concerns me overall for democracy at large, in addition to what's happening in the White House right now, the constant effort to publicly villainize people that you might disagree with is incredibly unhealthy for a democracy. But what it also does is it really chases away people who are actually just wanting to be a public servant. People who are willing to put their hands up, put their name on a ballot, go walk around to their neighbors asking for their vote, and want to serve. When we chase, this wasn't the case 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It is the case now, though. You've got to be willing to have everything you've ever said be scrutinized in a way. You're going to catch arrows constantly. Mm-hmm. You're going to be villainized by some people who don't even know who in the world you are. That's a lot for some people to take. Yeah. And it's a lot for their families to take on. It's a lot for their friends to take on. And my fear is we're going to be losing really good people. And listen, that's people of all political persuasions. Even though I might disagree with somebody on any host of policy issues, I can respect integrity, conviction, strength in a Republican, in a Green Party, in a Libertarian. I can respect someone from a different political party when I see integrity. Let's look at Lisa Murkowski right now, a Republican senator from Alaska. She's one of the few Republican senators speaking out against what's happening with President Trump right now. I'll probably disagree with her on 99 out of 100 policy issues in front of us, but I can respect that she's showing us integrity and leadership by being willing to stand up and speak up. When we lose those people, I think we lose a really important part of just a healthy democracy, a healthy debate, where people are entitled to disagree with one another. You can still respect the person you're talking to. And when we constantly villainize people in politics, you chase away the people that just want to be a good public servant and have some integrity, and you frankly only end up with your fringes. Yeah. And that's not a healthy thing for our democracy. So I'm concerned about that. And the misconception question kind of gets into that, is rather than people being willing to just honestly engage someone and say, hey, I had a question about a decision you made here. Can you help explain that one to me? Because I don't think I agree with you. That's how you actually have conversations. If you just want to sit in your basement anonymously on Twitter with your thumbs, just banging away at people, it might make you feel good for a little bit, but it really damages, I think, our overall democracy. Because it chases away people who would otherwise want to put their hand up and serve.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. You've always got a lot of support from your constituents in Ward 6. Why do you think that is?
Well, thank you. I am in my third term, and I'm deeply grateful to the good folks at Ward 6 that have sent me back. I think I've got an amazing team. I really, in the Wilson building, my office hasn't had a lot of turnover. We really work hard. We really work well as a team. I give a lot of credit to my staff. They are constantly out in the community, listening, working hard, and I empower them to go out and do that work. It's important. I also try really hard to always be listening and engaging directly. I think I'm one of the few council members, I do all my own emails. So when you send an email to callen@dccouncil.gov, you're not getting a staffer pretending to be me writing a response back. It's actually me. I go to lots of community meetings. I really try hard to be a good listener. And for people, and I have this happen frequently, I'll have somebody who disagrees with me, right, on a particular issue, and they'll come up and they'll talk to me about it. They leave the conversation saying, you know what, I disagree with you on that one, but I really appreciate that I understand where you're coming from, you understand where I'm coming from, and I just want to say I thank you for all the other work you do. We may disagree on this one issue over here, but there's so much more we agree on. I know how committed you are to getting this work done, and so thank you. If I've got people that disagree with me on issues telling me how much they appreciate me, I think that's more a reflection of the way that my staff and I really try to engage try to listen, don't hide the ball, be upfront with people, look them in the eye, and if you disagree with them, tell them in a respectful way. But I think that matters a lot, and I think it's built a lot of respect. And I think that I represent my ward really well. My staff does as well. I've got, love all the other 7 wards, but clearly Ward 6 is the best. And I think that that we've done a lot of amazing things, and they see what I can accomplish when I'm doing it right at the council, whether it's building that new school or library or getting that legislative reform done. I build relationships with our mayor, with the council to really get the job done, because that's at the end of the day what it's about, and I think people appreciate that.
Of course, you love Ward 6, and you're going to fight hard for Ward 6, but how do you maintain that balance between the needs and wants of Ward 6 versus the needs and wants for the rest of the city?
That's a great question, because the oath of office we take is not to the ward we represent. The oath of office we take is to the entire district. And I think that's important. Obviously, any ward council members, their job is to go out there and fight for their ward, right? But we are city leaders. And so when I'm fighting for a big reform that I think is going to make improvements in our city, do right by all our residents, I'm not thinking about just Ward 6. I'm thinking about what does this mean for our whole city. We don't pass legislation just by ward, we pass it for the whole city. At least in this current moment, for example, as the Ward 6 council member, I don't have a Ward 8 colleague. And so part of my duty, and I think part of my oath, is to make sure I'm thinking about my neighbors in Ward 8 who don't have a council member right now. And even though I'm the Ward 6 council member, how do I make sure I'm listening to the needs and desires and priorities of my Ward 8 neighbors so that I incorporate that as part of the job I have to do? And I do think we have a phenomenal group of members on this council who understand that, who kind of take a similar approach, that we are focused on the District of Columbia, these 700,000 people that call this place home. And it's an incredible and awesome responsibility, but it's one that you got to always come back to that oath you took when you put your hand up and took the job. It wasn't just a Ward 6. Again, I'm going to be a fighter for Ward 6. My oath was to the entire district, and so I have to balance that in the way that we work.
Great. So what is one policy or initiative you're most excited about in the coming
in this coming year?
Or not just this year, but in the future?
Well, I think part of what I love is the committee I chair, Transportation and the Environment. I really love the work that we're doing to make it a safer city, an easier city, a more affordable city, a more reliable city when you got to get around. So working on Metro, it may not be the most sexy thing in the world. It may not catch all the headlines, but I guarantee you, if you can't get from point A to B, or if it costs you an arm and a leg, you're going to know about it and you're going to feel it. So we spend a lot of time looking for regional solutions. So I get to work with my colleagues in Maryland and in Virginia to try to think about the policy solutions and the budgetary solutions to make sure that our metro system is reliable, that it's safe, that it's affordable, that you have confidence that you can get on your system. I also think it's important, and this is a place where I've been trying to provide a lot of leadership, is Metro is not just about the rail, it's the bus. The bus is what connects our neighborhoods. It connects us to each other. It connects kids to their school. It connects you to your grocery store, the doctor's office. Metro Rail really was built initially as a way to get people from the suburbs into their jobs downtown and back out again. It's our bus network that we really see making our city thrive and connecting the neighborhoods of our city. And that's a policy push I've made with the general manager, with the board and others, is really improving bus service, making it faster, making it more reliable, making it more frequent, making it affordable, so that you really can see that. That's a policy and initiative that this summer we're going to be seeing some changes to our bus network, which I think is going to make a lot of improvements, and continuing to push on that so that people know that they've got a great ride no matter where they got to go is something I'm really excited about. And it'll take a couple of years to fully implement, but it's going to be phenomenal for our city, for the economics of our city, for the economic recovery of our city, for everybody who's got to move around. It's going to be important.
Great. One other question. If you could accomplish one major change for DC in the next 5 years, what would that be?
Statehood.
I love it.
Let's just get that done, right? Get that off the list, right?
Yeah.
We got other things we want to get to. Let's just go ahead and knock that one out.
Awesome. So do you want to leave our listeners with any parting thoughts and parting words?
I think a lot of folks right now are feeling down. I think feeling frustrated. I think feeling angry, feeling anxious, all of it, right? Like, we are feeling a lot of emotions right now. I think not just as DC residents, but as Americans. And I think that we need to find ways that we channel all of that to move it forward. It's not a healthy thing just to sit at home and just kind of stew in it by ourselves. There are going to be moments when we do need to take action, like this week, taking action to try to stop Congress from doing harm to our city. We're also going to pace ourselves because it's going to be very hard to maintain that level over the next couple of years. But we need people to be able to be motivated. I think as leaders, so as leaders of the Democratic Party, leaders of the council, I think we are going to have to also work on helping give people some direction about those opportunities. And I think that's something that I know I'm committed to trying to do, is to let people feel empowered and know that they can take a call, they can go march, they can take an action. We do not do well when we feel like that our destiny is out of our own control. And so we need to make sure that we are providing opportunities as leaders. People see us fighting, but that we are also bringing people with us into that fight, and that we're helping lead the fight together. That's going to be an important part of us to be able to manage the next couple of years. Everybody knows DC is more vulnerable than everybody else. You know, we don't have senators. I don't have a member of Congress. So there will be moments when we have to be more strategic than we might like about choosing which battle to fight. But make no mistake, there are battles that are worth fighting. There are battles we have to fight. And I think, and I'm confident that we have the leadership in the city to really pull people together to get the job done. People know that their leaders are willing to step up in the streets fighting with them, and making sure that it's a joint effort, that we are collectively fighting for the district rights and residents.
Well, you can count on the DC Democratic Party for that one.
I appreciate it.
Well, Councilmember, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. You're always welcome back.
Thanks.
Anytime you want to come back, let us know. We'll love to have you.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Charles.
All right, have a great day.
You too.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you